So I'm Michal Papis. You can find me on Twitter. Write email to me if you want to discuss some ideas. I will have some two small talks. One is about defining hooks in Ruby. I tried to research the topic. There are few gems that do this task, but none of them was something I could easily understand, and that had simple code that you were not afraid that something go wrong. So I wrote this small gem library for Ruby that you can use. And so let's start. How do you use it? You can install it with gem install. Add the require, so you can load it in new code. How you define it? So you extend instance hooks, define a hook, and yeah, that's all. So let's test it. We create instance of the object, and we already have the hook. So we can get some methods, and hook is extending Ruby's observable standard library, which is quite nice. So what we have there, we can add observer, so we will notify an object that something happened. And by default, we use the update method. But if you don't like the update name or you have more events that you want to be notified about, you add just the method name as parameter. How do we call it? We can change the state. So we say, OK, something happened. We will run the hook, and we have to call notify observers. And as a bonus, I just merged those two methods so we can change on notify in one method. I never had a chance to use change separately, so it's really convenient to run it in one method. And all of these things you could write manually. It's really simple, like 10 or 15 lines of code, but the real bonus is documentation. You can, when using Yard for documentation, you can add a plugin for Ruby hooks that will help you to document your hooks. So you can get notification parameters. There is a name of the parameter, type, and some description. Let's see how it looks. So when you define a hook, you give some description, and you notify, show the parameters you will notify in the hook. So let's see. When you define multiple hooks, all of them will be grouped in one documentation section for hooks. They won't be mixed in methods, so it will be separate section in documentation, and the result will be like this. You will get the definition, what it returns. It returns a hook, and you will get the notification parameters described. So it allows a lot more. You can extend, while defining hook, you can extend them with your own modules, which will provide extra functionalities, extra methods for your code. If you think you need something else, like finding a hook or handling exceptions in hooks, it's up to you, and adding new functionality is as easy as writing a module that will extend this hook. And let's see talk 2. I see a lot of people have problems pushing changes to JIT on Wi-Fi, on conference, because the port 22 is locked. So you can see that if you run JIT remote, you see which URLs will be used to download and push code. What we can do when we have the fetch URL, it's the question of translating it to HTTPS request, where the open ports will be used. And in this case, you will use the open access to GitHub and pull the changes. And for pushing, we add the username. It's not required, but if you add it, you don't have to type it when you push the changes. So you are asked only to type your password, and you can push your code changes, so you don't have to wait for the hotel or set up VPN. That's all. If you want to contact me, just tweet me or email. Thank you.
Awesome. So, yeah, I'm here to talk to you about this new programming language. If you're familiar with Go or Java, you will really love this one. So, it's an imperative programming language. That means you tell it what to do, basically. This guy invented it a few years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, I don't know. Pretty smart guy. Like, he took a lot of kind of ideas from Go, mainly. And this is how it looks like. So it's like pretty, pretty familiar. You can understand what's going on. It's like printing hello world to the screen. Oh, no. So as I've said, it's like very familiar for those of you who've played around with Go, Java, or any other language like this. It's very minimal, so, forget about all this bloat, public class, main, whatever. No. Look, this is the minimum program. Actually, you can omit the int in most implementations, so it's cool. It's very modular, so your code is not all over the place, It has a simple, clean module system. It's called a C preprocessor, and you can include all these header files, and it's all really nice. There's no dependency problems and stuff like this. It just works. It's also very practical. So it's not about, some of you might like all this mathematics and Haskell and all this stuff. This is for people who want to work and get shit done. Like, this is very practical. And it has stuff like type inference for literals, for example. So in literals, you don't have to say this is a string. It knows, kind of. So the type system keeps track of the literals, and it knows that's a string and that's an int. So you don't need to annotate it. That's kind of part of the state of the art. It's like of type systems. So yeah, it's also very expressive. So it's not like statically typed, like rigid like Java. It's like you can do really crazy stuff. Really crazy stuff. You can, if you want, you can try this. It gives you the power to do it. It's a little bit unsafe, but it gives you a lot of freedom, So you can basically, if you know what you're doing, you can do amazing stuff. So, in Java, if it compiles, it probably works. Yeah, blah, blah. Well, that's basically in C, if you could type it, it probably compiles. That's how we look at C programs. Yeah, it also has some nice features, runtime polymorphism with void star. It's, you can have a function that basically takes different kinds of objects. It's very flexible in that regard, so you may shoot yourself in the foot, but it's okay. Like, we're programmers, so we know what we're doing anyway. So, it also has very good support for concurrency. If you've done any concurrency with Ruby, for example, it's a pain in the ass. But here you have like amazing threads. Well, you also have threads in Ruby, but here they're faster, so it's better. So yeah, this is how you use all your cores in your cluster. So it's pretty cool. It has very efficient memory management. Go has this garbage collector. This, Dennis Ritchie was like, Go is like too heavy with all this garbage collection going on. It's better if you just allocate memory, and then you kind of free it after you've used it, and then it just, no garbage collection, just works. So it's super nice, really nice. Also get control over how much memory you allocate for, so it's really cool for low-level applications. No? It's also very fast. It's incredibly fast. But not like in fast food, as in bad for you, but more like fast, like really quick. He has also a vibrant community, which none of the languages you use can say the same. Like, look at all these projects. They all use C. They don't use Go or any of your fancy languages. They use C. And you've probably used C in production, right? In your laptops, everywhere. So it's kind of battle tested as well, although it's very young. Like it's almost 5 years old, maybe. And basically, what it doesn't need, honestly. All these fancy things that people sell, no, it's not needed. Honestly, it's if you want to get stuff done, just use C. Forget about all these abstractions and stuff like this. Did I say it's very fast? I think I might have forgotten that, but it's very fast. Really, really fast. It's extremely fast. And that's why you should use it, because that's what we want, right? We want fast programming languages. And that's all. Thanks.
All right. Sorry, guys, for the setup. My name is Wojtek. I'm a developer at Stack Builders. And today I'd like to talk about one of my favorite features on Rails 4.2, which is a web console. So here I have a simple Rails application. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this new web console thing. So I can just include the helper in the code, refresh the page, and at the bottom of the page I have REPL. So I can inspect the environment, I can run arbitrary Ruby code. With web console, I can also mount, there's like a separate route for a full screen REPL as well. So let me try that. And here again, I can run arbitrary Ruby code as I showed you before. In particular, you can see my path to my current directory. And as you know, in IRB on in Rails console, you can actually run arbitrary Unix commands. So let's get a little bit weird, and let's run command bash. And it actually worked. So now we have interactive bash session in the browser. We can inspect, the files that I have currently. And actually, it's not simply, like command in, command out. You can see the colors here as well, right? So I have blue for the directories, I have green for my prompt. So web console is actually a VT100 terminal protocol implementation that's in JavaScript in your browser. So you can do cool stuff here as well. So let's get a little bit weird again. Let's open VI. So it not only boots, but I can actually use my plugins that I have installed. I happen to have Control-P plugin to find files easily. So I can find the layout file again. I'm sorry for the error. The file is already open. So, all right, so I have my file here. I can add some HTML code, save the file, and refresh the browser. And it worked as well. Obviously, you probably don't want to run this in production. But to be honest, it's sounds kind of cool to me. And like reminds me a little bit of my PHP background. So as you can see, VI works well. For those of you who prefer Emacs, that works as well. And I don't usually use Emacs, but when I do, thank you.
Hello. I'm very, very excited and proud to announce a new revolutionary programming language that is called Blankfuck. This will change your life. Blankfuck is the most readable brainfuck implementation of all time. Let's see some code, shall we? How about hello world? Obviously, we can see what that does. Next, we have Fibonacci. Also, very, very readable. Let's see that code run. So here, as you can see, I'm going to cat out hello world. Here it is, once again. And now I'm going to run it through the interpreter. Probably should increase this in size. And there we have hello world. Next, we'll go ahead and run cat out Fibonacci. And there you go. Let's run it, shall we? Fibonacci and Blankfuck. You can find this on GitHub at rylev/Blankfuck. Fork and contribute now. Thank you.
Amazing. Easy. Yes, so hello. My name is Martin Vidner. I work for SUSE Linux in the Prague office. And this being PolyConf, we have already seen many new libraries and languages, especially the recent ones are pretty impressive. But to see something different.
I know, something wrong with it. Can you mirror the display? Oh, I know, some lower resolution.
Well, I have a PDF on a stick if you have a different computer.
Okay, I can
Maybe pardon the disruption.
Okay. Let's see. Okay.
I won't touch it much.
Yeah, because the resolution is lower. Okay, it's okay.
Okay, so where was I? Yeah, something entirely different. I want to show you how we instead killed an entire language. So the context for this is the team I work in, which is Yast. That's a SUSE feature. It's an installer and a configuration tool. You can configure various basic and advanced features of the distribution with it. For example, this is the advanced partitioner. And as I said, it's also the installer. So it's a pretty important feature that the managers like very much, and we cannot really do without it. And what's the problem with it? The problem is, or rather was, that Yast had like 600,000 lines of code, which I don't know how that big is, but it is pretty big. It wouldn't be a problem in itself, but it was written in YCP. Now, you probably haven't heard about YCP. That's because YCP is a custom in-house language developed at SUSE about 14 years ago. It's a procedural language, and about 12 people in the world knew it. So it was turning out to be a maintenance nightmare, because like you hear about these new languages and libraries and debuggers and profilers and tools, whatnot, and we weren't having any of that. And we thought, well, what do we do about that? And we said, okay, we must rewrite it. And what do we rewrite it to? Actually, no, PHP wasn't it. Surprisingly, it was not Erlang either. We looked around in the company, like who the potential contributors are, and we saw that most people know Ruby. So we translated Yast to Ruby. We developed a tool, a transpiler, which is called YCP Killer. It's on GitHub. And we translated the whole thing. We were about 6 people, and it took us like 6 months on and off between other work. The 600,000 lines of Ruby turned into 700,000 lines of code in YCP to Ruby. It's still big, but it's much more manageable. It was like 96 modules. And the amazing thing is it has worked. Like, we have done this 1 year ago already and released that last fall in the OpenSUSE release. And now Yast in Ruby is a part of the brand new enterprise release that came out last week. Check it out, buy it anyway. And my message, my takeaway from this to you is, if you're stuck in a similar situation, you might want to try this approach too. It sounds crazy, but it has worked for us. Don't be afraid. And the gory details are too big to fit in this little margin, so you have to ask me afterwards. Oh, yeah. Thank you.